Let's get to our focus of the day, which is the U.S.-Iran war. Tensions remain high on the day 63 of the Iran war as Donald Trump signals the possibility of renewed military action, and that's despite an ongoing ceasefire with Tehran. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has described the United States naval blockade of Iranian ports as intolerable, calling it a continuation of hostilities. Meanwhile, air defense systems were activated overnight in Tehran amid reports of drone activity, highlighting persistent security concerns in the region. Israel has warned it may resume strikes against Iran, while deadly attacks in Lebanon have raised fears of a wider conflict. Meanwhile, Washington says it may reduce troop presence in parts of Europe as divisions grow among allies over the war. Despite a temporary halt in direct fighting, analysts warn the situation remains fragile, with diplomacy stalled and the risk of escalation still looming. Globally, oil prices have surged to four-year highs, underlining the broader economic impact of the crisis. For now, the world watches closely as tensions between the United States and Iran continue to unfold. Global Affairs analyst Gbenga Onifade joins me from the UK. Good to have you join us, Gbenga.
Good afternoon.
So I just wanted to start with developments in Iran. Today, Iran is commemorating the National Persian Gulf Day. It's a day where in 1622, Iran successfully pushed back Portuguese colonizers who were trying to take over the Strait of Hormuz. And when you look at that 400 years later, over 400 years later, it looks like Iran has gone back full circle. I mean, it was an existential threat then. Is it an existential threat today for Iran as well?
Well, I mean, you've got to look at it from Donald Trump's or President Trump's point of view. Well, he made a comment or a tweet, which you can still find, about 13 years ago, and he said Iran has never lost any war. Well, they might have lost negotiations, but they never lost any war. So yes, they are being threatened right now. You are correct on such a special day when they've been able to push back the Portuguese, and we're talking about a civilization that's existed for thousands of years, which America could, which we could probably potentially say America is a baby, and now is being dragged into, in quotes, an illegal.
Gbenga, please just help us check your audio. We can't hear you anymore. We seem to have lost the audio connection with Gbenga Onifade. I understand that he's back. Gbenga, you were speaking, I understand you're back, you were speaking to the 400-year Iran war, Persian Empire war with the Portuguese colonizers and how it plays into or ties into what's happening now.
Well, I mean, really and truly, the way it plays into it is the fact that I think Iran can drag things out. They have been, for 400 years, they haven't actually been ruled. If at all, they are the builders over there. I think we're talking about a country with a lot of history, okay? And we could draw two parallels over, we could draw two parallels over these guys who can fight right before, way before the advent of civilization, and now whereby we're talking about, another country, which is America, who can fight with guns and drones and everything else. So I think we could draw that parallel because they were never defeated. If you look into that, if you look into that time, that era with the Portuguese, but now I think things are a lot more modern. And if I'm actually going to drag it a little bit or shift the focus to where we are right now, so different kind of different places, but again with different superpowers and again different focus as well. I think with Portuguese were looking at, of course, obtaining and conquering, while in this time around, I think America is looking at different focus, which is, we do not want our position to be shifted. And I think that's the way I see both powers.
So basically, this is more of a test of resolve, and I'm wondering who has some more strength and leverage to hold out longer.
It's while I think historically, America is not used to a long and protracted war. They're not. They are used to, get the job done. Let's move on. And I think with also with the way democracy plays with America, America loves with the way democracy plays, you've got news headlines, you've got shifts and changes, you've got elections going on, opportunities, midterm, for example, we're looking at forward to one in November. You want this to be dead and forgotten long before or earlier before then. So have they got the resolve? Yes. I mean, right now they are being heavily affected. And, President Trump, he decided to use the biggest leverage or the biggest tool in his box, which is the cargoes, which is where they process 90% of their oil. Who collects it? China. China could get weakened, Iran could get weakened as a result. And he said, look, we will destroy all this infrastructure right now. We've got our eyes on it. It can be destroyed if you do not give me what I want. We want a deal between each other. I think it made headline, and then of course they retracted. It would have been a criminal offense. Unfortunately, I think it's illegal. We all know that, but President Trump decided to use that to get something out of it. So yes, they've got but Iran, on the other hand, they are a dictator compared to America, who is a democracy. Dictatorial, what have they got to lose? They've got the time, they've got everything. They've been used to doing what they want to do anyway. Compared to here, things make headlines, America's going to get pushed back. And before we think about it, you want this all to be forgotten at the latest, maybe May, June. We are in May right now. We've got 6 months to the midterms. President Trump cannot afford to lose it right now. He's on his record low, over the 2 times combined. So I think he wants it over and done with as soon as possible. And we could see the odd pushback, from the way he's talking, from things. And, like I said again earlier, in terms of he's not making those those headline-driven remarks anymore. I think most of his posts are now more of claiming victory. I mean, we don't even know how many times he claimed victory over the last, few months since the whole entire thing started.
And we also know that Iran is a very very hard and resolute negotiator. We've seen them over the years. I mean, they have the experience when it comes to negotiating. You saw them with the Barack Obama administration when they negotiated the JCPOA. It took quite a while to even get that document put together. And I'm wondering what it means for President Trump now. Could he get frustrated and then resort to military strikes all over again?
War takes time to get started, number one. Number two, it takes forever to just die down. I mean, we're talking about emotions here. So with President Obama and President Biden, Iran got something out of this. One thing President Trump said again is Iran's never lost a negotiation. But again, President Trump, the art of the deal, he's a deal maker. He says, I deal with America as a business. I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. And that's what I want. So we're looking at, are we going to get a win-win situation here? Yes, of course, it's possible. I think the key thing people are looking for is they don't want President Trump to get worse deal than President Obama got or President Biden. And that will, it would defeat the entire purpose. Iran sent one of the key major guys to the negotiating table. I'm not sure if it's something about emotions. The guys President Trump sent, Kushner out, very close to his heart, near and dear to his heart. But at the same time, business is business. We want to get something. So back to the question, are we going to get the situation where we're going to start getting strikes? It's very difficult, very hard to say. Probably because war takes time. We might get it again after the midterms again to get the escalation. But right now, I think things are trailing and closing down a little bit. Again, why is that? Because you want all this thing to be long and forgotten. President Trump and Biden, Biden and Obama, they gave Iran the billions, which President Trump believes that's what they spent in building the wall. But President Trump says, no, that's not a great deal. We're going to take this money back from them. But at the same time, we need the money back into American economy. We need them, don't build nuclear weapons. And regardless what Iran says, I think a lot of things are being done behind closed doors. I don't believe President Trump will do more, will have more strikes right now. In fact, there's been few issues of him actually curtailing and shifting the military base a little bit out, spreading it out instead of being concentrated on Iran. But of course, it keeps on the pressure. So and we haven't really heard of more strikes coming out. I think the last thing we heard was, in fact, I probably could say, is kind of detracting himself when he said, "Look, Bibi, you will be looking bad." I'm talking about Netanyahu. You will start making yourself look bad. We need to close things down. Let's be strategic with our, with whatever action we make. Let's be structural. Let's be surgical. In his own word, he says surgical, so that we know, we pinpoint whatever we want to get. And we want these headlines turning around. I want to get the love, and fuel is at all-time high right now again. He doesn't want that, and he's staying there. Things are not coming down. This is a president who made a campaign on no more war, no more new wars. But unfortunately, this is a new war. He wants to get things down, but things are going up. Inflation's creeping, and people do not want that. So I don't think he wants any more headline-grabbing events. At least,
but Benga, he also wants a win. So how is he? Because again, he has to justify the $25 billion that what's his name? Pete Hegseth, who is the defense secretary, has said they have been spent so far. He has to justify that, and so he wants a win, but he also wants to get out of this war. And I'm wondering where he finds that balance.
Yes, you're not wrong. Unfortunately, Hegseth hasn't actually made himself look as great. I saw the news conference, the Congress hearing yesterday, and it wasn't a great look at all. I think quite a lot of questions were deflected, and a lot of questions were outrightly not even answered. And even, in fact, he had to agree with some of the remarks being made. He knew things have not really gone their way. Yes, President Trump wants to justify what is being spent on. I think the unfortunate thing was how could you say you played the weaker hand? Because it's not really America's war. I mean, it was. But again, there's got to be something in there for him. How do you justify? A win is not necessarily, when it comes to war, there's no winner, okay? Yes, you want a deal out of them. Can you get the deal? But Iran, as long as Iran is getting something out of this thing, President Trump could claim a win. Iran will claim a win. It's not about ego right now, I think, because at the end of the day, we've got lives being lost, we've got money being spent, and unfortunately, we're all paying for this war in terms of high gas prices. So if gas is going to have to go back down and we return back to the status quo, President Trump could actually tell you, you know what, that's a win. Yes, people can bite back and say, well, I mean, you met it at $2 a gallon, and you took it to $5, and it's now back down to $2. He's going to tell you, look, that is still a win. We're back down to $2. He's not going to revisit the history. So a win is not necessarily whereby we take all the spoils of war, we take it back home. But I think either way, if both of them could say, look, we got something out of it, I got something out of it. They said they're never going to build this nuclear weapon, which has actually all been saying. But now, look, they need to sign a document. They can trust me. There's a leverage right here on both sides. Then I can say it's a win. So not necessarily until the entire Iran is destroyed, because he went there on the premise of regime change. The regime is still there. I think the best negotiator, which is the Ayatollah, was that was the one who was actually killed. And now we've got a new Ayatollah, a stronger, who is actually leaning further to the right. Is still there, So he hasn't really got that win. But again, and everything is just really gone bad. If we're going to get back to a reset, that might be a win. And I think he's going to go home a happy man. And as long as things...
Benga, I want to put you on hold. So you touched on the Ayatollah, which is the younger Ayatollah now, who looks a bit more defiant and hardline, all the way to the right, more than his father. He's released a statement saying, look, the nuclear uranium enrichment is out of question. That continues. Iran will not give up its nuclear weapons. President Trump has said, look, that is the only way that this war ends. I'm wondering if there's a middle ground here, or if this war drags out because of just that one sticking point.
Look, he's allowed to say whatever he wants to say. At the end of the day, while he believes if he's killed, for example, he's a martyr based on his religion, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, he's got a responsibility. President Trump as well, he's got a responsibility. And we've got to understand these guys are not just acting willy-nilly based on, just like that, or the strike of a finger. So yes, he's allowed to say that, because the stronger your statement, the better the better the outcome of your negotiation. And that's what I believe he's trying to say. Yes, he's a hardliner here, 56 years old, a lot more agile, stronger. But at the end of the day, you want your people behind you. You want them to believe we've got a strong leader. President Trump is actually a man who loves a strong, he loves a strong leader. If you remember when he got elected again, I think the entire world was looking at Ukraine as, the underdog who's been defeated. We all wanted cheering Ukraine to win, but he turned it around. Look, Russia is the guy here, and he eventually turned Ukraine to the aggressor. He talked about China. He loves that, regardless whether you've seen things from the same angle. He loves he loves a strong person. So you got Ayatollah, who's very strong-willed. You got President Trump, energetic, and he knows what he wants. And at the end of the day, both of them have got to put on a show of force. It's not about them. I think it's more about the people who are behind them, and the better it is for them. So I think I would really take whatever statement he says with a pinch of salt. Ultimately, it's all about what they get out of this deal. Again, do I think Iran is going to leave empty-handed? I don't think so. They're not going to leave empty-handed, but both of them is going to leave some spoils on the table, and that's the way this is still going to end. This war is not going to end with just bombs. I think it's going to end with both meeting on the table. I think recently President Trump's he recalled the negotiators saying, look, we're done talking, there's no more talking. But of course, he's looking at the clock, he's against the clock, he's counting down, and he wants this thing to come to an end as soon as he can.
So let's look at the Israel-Lebanon end of this. So we understand that the strikes have continued. More than 20 persons were reported to have been killed in Lebanon yesterday due to Israeli strikes. There's supposed to be a ceasefire, but it doesn't look like that is being respected, by both sides. I also just want to get your reaction to the Israel-Lebanon angle of this war, and how to, again, because there's an agreement between Lebanon now and Israel that his Hezbollah will be managed, and they are totally disarmed by Lebanon, who doesn't seem to have what it takes to do that.
Well, so with Israel going on right now, you got Israel fighting Lebanon, or actually, should I say, fighting Hezbollah? But Hezbollah is Iranian axis. They are funding, because where these guys getting their money, getting from Iran. Lebanon now is an arm of the government. They are officially a government official in the government, okay, in the seat of power. But Netanyahu, he says these guys pose a threat, and Lebanon, he's got a big army. They're not just a little force, And recently, they had a negotiation. They came to negotiation, and they said, okay, we're going to agree on the ceasefire for 3 weeks. But unfortunately, how is this holding? We don't know, because Bibi just said, look, these guys, we don't believe the job is done. We're just going to strike again. But sorry for taking you back a little bit. President Trump strategically just said, look, I'm sorry, you've got to make this very surgical. You've got to make it pinpoint, targeted attack, because whatever you do is making things looking bad. He's making you look back. He didn't actually say we. I think what you got to understand also was when they asked President Netanyahu, they said, is President Trump aware of what you are doing? Of course, he tried to detract President Trump, and he said, yes, he said, we are taking action that we think is right, but he said, for every blink we make, President Trump is aware. So is this a potential threat to the ceasefire? Yes, the United Nations said the violence things are on the edge right now. It's a very, I'm going to call it a pregnant pause. When they had a negotiation and they said we're going to have a 3 weeks ceasefire, I said it was a pregnant pause, number one. But number two, you could see the minute they started striking, unfortunately, people lost their lives. We had about 249 injured. And Hezbollah themselves, they sent a drone showing some Israeli soldiers have been attacked. So it's coming from both ends. It's not just a one-way street. That place been on the edge for a while. And I think like like the UK Prime Minister said, Jojo, is better than war. I think at the end of the day, you got to come to negotiating table and talk. And, that's the only way. I think recently we saw Israel, they claimed a certain part of the land and a stretch of kilometers. They said, this is going to be a buffer zone. At least we want this area. So we know this is a buffer zone. It protects us, protects you as well from any strikes. And we know we're going to have an agreement. And you can see the Lebanese president, he's actually making that phone call. Say, look, if no one's going to come to the table, I will come to the table. Let's have a negotiation as to put an end to this crisis.
Well, interesting point you've made there. Thank you so much for your time. Again, we're following those developments in the Middle East. Global Affairs Analyst, Benga Onifadi.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on What Now. For more updates on international stories we're monitoring, you can visit our website. It's www.tvcnews.tv. You can also follow us on our social media handles. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at TVC News NG. I also have updates for you on WhatsApp and Telegram at TVC News Nigeria. On YouTube or live at TVC News Nigeria. I am Precious Amayo. Thanks for watching.